Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. My name is James Batchelor and today we are talking to Mazda Motors UK Sales Director Peter Allibon. Hello, Peter.
Hi, James. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Lovely to have you on as always. Now, amazingly, it's been 12 months since we last spoke to you. I mean, not just the motor trade, but life in general has changed quite a lot in the past year. I mean, from a Mazda perspective, how has the last 12 months been for you?
Yeah, challenge like for most people in our industry or in any industry, really. I guess we've proved to ourselves that we can adapt to changing things. I think when we last spoke, as we suggested, it was almost like I felt that we're almost through this, and a year on, and I'm still in this room. I have been let out once or twice. But I think that from a Mazda perspective and my personal perspective, trying to plan the business, we've got cars that are built in Japan and therefore pretty long lead times. And when you're working from home, your dealerships are closed and you're trying to predict the next 12 months volume plans so that you can build cars accordingly. That was a challenge, and it got us all to learn how to make accurate assumptions. We had to try to assume the political landscape and decisions made by Boris in order for us to more accurately plan our monthly volume plans. So that certainly was a challenge. Our dealers obviously went through the same challenges as everybody in the first waves, closed up and then progressively opened things as things went by. And when they reopened on the 1st of June, they all were COVID secure, and I've got to commend them all for doing such a great job to be able to welcome people back into the showrooms who were willing to go back into showrooms at that point, and actually experienced somewhat of a bounce back in that period, which was fantastic. And of course, the pandemic struck again, and it meant that we all had to rethink, close down again, or just work through uncertainties. And I think that's probably the most challenging aspect of everything. If you know that you're going to be closed, you start to get a gauge of what volume of business you might be able to do in that scenario. If you know you're going to be open, you know what that scenario would bring. But even when we were open, the regional variances and the tiering systems meant that, from one city to the next, they were just working in a different scenario altogether. So trying to plan through that was possibly the most difficult thing. Working from home, I think we all can be grateful of doing it, whilst certainly for me and my job and working with my team and the entire business, we enjoy getting together. We enjoy the social interactions that we have with not just our colleagues internally, but with dealers and with our agencies, and we've really missed that. But I guess we've all learned to get used to working with Teams, Zoom, or whatever it may be that we're using remotely, and even those things have come along over the last 12 months to make our lives a bit easier in that regard. Yeah. I'm just grateful for the 12 months having not lost any dealers for financial concerns, grateful to the government incentives and support packages that they've put in place. And we've tried to support our network as much as we possibly could, whilst also trying to run a stable business ourselves. But we value the network, the stability of the network. So we did all we could as quickly as we could to ensure that we didn't lose any dealers throughout this pandemic. And I'm pleased to say we didn't. So, it means that now we've got a strong platform to learn from what we've just been through, and perhaps have some successes over the course of the next year and beyond.
Yeah, I must admit that point did sort of, I did consider that point over the past 12 months. You hear from lots of manufacturers, Ford, Vauxhall, whoever it may be, lots of the volume car makers, they did lose some of their dealers. They possibly slimmed down their dealing networks, and some brands have even put their dealers up for 10 anyway. But you haven't lost any dealers. So is that because the dealers have felt supported? They felt as though that they've been able to sell cars in an effective way, and once we get back to some kind of normality, whenever that is, the good times are going to come back?
Yeah, I guess we, as a brand, kind of monitor our dealers' financial stability pretty closely. We don't have a captive bank, we have banking partners, and we take it on ourselves to ensure that we understand fully the financial well-being of all of our dealers. And so we could go into this understanding where there might be some risks, and in all of this sort of situation, cash is king. Where might things start to get squeezed when there isn't any revenue being generated by the businesses, and work with them, provide them not with necessarily advice, but lead them to where the advice is. Make sure they're aware of all of the government support mechanisms, how to access them and access them quickly, take advantage of everything that's available to them throughout a period when their businesses are going to be tested. And I think we did that quite well. We've provided as much support as we could, as I said. And I think really I remember when we reopened in June, a lot of dealers were saying we can't manage through a second wave. You know, a second wave would be catastrophic for the industry and the dealer network. And, you know, I agreed with them at that point. Luckily, we got through a September. So that was a good shot in the arm with some financial income. And, you know, working through and towards when we went into sort of the second lockdown and then into the post-Christmas period, I think what was remarkable for the industry, not just for Mazda, is if you compare the level of volume that we did through a period of being closed January through March versus a period of being closed halfway through March, April, May, is quite profound. And you can just see the adaptation of the general industry to be able to still operate from a new and used car perspective. I mean, the majority were working with service throughout anyway, but, you know, the ability to be able to still sell around about 60 or 70% of what they would do normally when showrooms were closed, through a variety of creative approaches, whether it be just digital, whether it be going out, taking customers, you know, having handover bays wherever they needed to be compliant, but still churning out business, still servicing customers' needs, and customers who also were feeling possibly that they weren't in a position right now to be buying a car. They wanted to, but didn't feel like they wanted to take that journey, convincing them that they're in a COVID secure environment, and still doing that level of business. It was quite remarkable, and I'm, you know, forever thankful for that, because it helped us keep the factories going, and the stock that was coming on ships, we managed to get them out to customers, which was, you know, much needed. Otherwise we would have come into April and May, you know, quite a difficult position.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think I think it's all too easy to look at the S&T figures every single month and say, oh, well, the motor trade is down. In fact, especially at the first part of this year, I think dealers did an amazing job just to keep going. And one of the reasons why they did such a good job was adapting, especially to click and collect and online car sales. The last time that we spoke, I mean, I know you were saying Mazda Motors UK was applying pressure on Mazda to sort of implement some kind of online buying service. I mean, how has that been? Has that actually arrived, or has it been?
It's had a number of guises, and because we want to have a pan-European solution, it's taken us a little longer than it would have done had we just been delivering something that was specific to the UK. And so worked on a number of different scoping exercises, gone through a number of potential different partners. We're getting much closer now. Thankful for dealers being able to do things themselves from a digital perspective on new car. But I guess we were more focused, whilst not having a particular end-to-end online solution, on still providing remote services to customers, whether it be video consultation, home test drives when we were able to, home deliveries. So still keeping things going remotely and on an omni-channel basis, but not necessarily through a digital end-to-end solution. You know, that will be coming, and I'm hoping the fact that we're waiting a little longer for it, and that it will be pan-European in the future, you know, it'd be worth the wait.
Yeah, but really, let's face it. You know, if you're investing in a fully end-to-end online system, that's great, but you are only speaking to a small proportion of customers. Most customers, partly because of the pandemic, they do prefer a blended approach, don't they? Partly physical and partly online. And, we've seen that, haven't we?
Absolutely. The end-to-end capabilities that we'll be designing we won't be measuring our success or the success of an online solution by how many people go end to end. It'll be how many people in the middle part of the funnel that maybe can go further on an online experience and jump on and jump off of the online offline experience as they choose. But 100%, I certainly see the future of physical environments for customers where they want them. I also see that there's going to be some customers that are just going to not need that as part of their sales journey, and we just need to adapt and be there to cater for all of those different needs. And when those needs come at the different times during the sales process, and every individual is very different, and even every individual is different from one day to the next, because they may find themselves far away and not able to get to a dealer, and therefore they would like to go further online. And equally, if their dealer's around the corner, they may be passing, and be a perfect opportunity to nip in. But you need to continue the journey that you've already started, wherever it is you are in the process.
Now, again, this time last year, there was a lot of conversations about looking forward to September, but there were concerns about new car supply because of factory closures. But Mazda, I think at the time you said you weren't really affected by that because you had enough supply coming from Japan. But 12 months on, again, new car supply is being hit by something entirely different, this time semiconductors. I mean, are you feeling that effect?
Yeah, I guess there's two elements to the semiconductor issue. One is COVID related, and the demand for the chips and the equipment that the chips goes into. And I think that from a Mazda perspective, we overcome that issue. We were, from a UK perspective, we were hit very, very lightly with that issue. I'm talking less than 100 units of production cut as a result of that. And we sourced, the appropriate level of semiconductors. I guess equally, when we came into the period when showrooms reopened, I planned for us to reopen in March. Because I'm having to put production in place October, November to feed March. We planned for a healthy recovery that we would be back reopened in March. So rather than for us doing the full March, we delivered maybe 65% of a full March, which meant we came into April with a reasonably healthy level of stock, which is great news. Then there was a fire in a semiconductor factory in Japan, and that's what has hit us. The team in Japan have been working hard trying to recover some of that, and I'm really grateful to say that I've got no production issues through to the end of August. September, I may feel a bit of a pinch on a couple of car lines. But when I look and talk to dealers about some of the issues that other manufacturers have got right now, and that extends out quite far, some of them are pretty severe. So, whilst I'm so keen for the network to have a successful and maximize September as much as possible, I'm also grateful that the impact that we've had is negligible when compared to some of other manufacturers suffering, and it is a real challenge. And I guess we're feeling the positive side of that because we do have available stock right now, and I know we're in an environment where other manufacturers maybe are feeling the pinch, and so I think we're probably seeing some successes as a result of that.
Yeah, and I in some ways it's good that you're not in the commercial vehicle market, because I hear that's even worse, isn't it? I mean, I think if you order a particular van at the moment, you won't get delivery for 18 months, which is far from ideal.
Which I'm sure the used car van market is feeling that now as well in terms of used van prices. We've felt it in the car market, and used cars, prices have increased, which would be great for dealer profitability, but we just need to get through a cycle of the new car churn, part exchanges, generate the used cars for the used car demand, because I'm sure dealers would rather sell 3 more than make a couple of £100 out of more out of one. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenging time right now, but not too bad for Mazda.
Yeah, well, let's just stick on that theme of used cars. I mean, you know, like you alluded to there are some sort of key concerns in the months ahead. You know, lack of new car supply, fewer fleets, fewer part exchanges coming through the network. I mean, are your dealers at the moment saying they're okay sourcing stock, or are you starting to get a few dealers saying, actually, we're starting to struggle here?
Yeah, I think my dealers always struggle to source enough Mazda used cars. That's what they tell me. I think they certainly are reporting that, you know, they've got fewer stock now than they have known for some time. For us, it's not so bad. And when I was saying that, I'm talking about for, you know, across all of their brands. I think for Mazda, it's not too bad. You know, we are selling new cars above the level that we're planning. In April and May, we were above target, and there's a good level of conquest business and renewal business coming through. So a good mix of, you know, rich used product for them to sell. Sourcing cars outside of just your normal part exchange, I think dealers are having to be not creative necessarily, but go down some channels that they wouldn't normally do, you know, buying cars from retail customers on Auto Trader or whichever used car platform they choose to use. But actually going down that route, you know, if you need to fill your forecourt, you need to go and look at every single opportunity, because there's probably some money to be made while values are going up. You know, and I don't see that situation necessarily improving in the next couple of months, because I think new vehicle supply is still pinching for a couple of months yet. Some brands much longer, so I'm told. So I think used car values will be holding up, and sourcing used cars from wherever you can obtain them is probably the right thing to do right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, some dealers, not Mazda ones, but some dealers have been telling us that they can see the possibility in the not too distant future that they're probably going to be selling only new cars to customers if they've got a part exchange or a used car. They'd rather prioritize those customers. I mean, do you think we could actually get to that level where certain customers are prioritized over others, or are we worrying unnecessarily?
I'd hope that we didn't come to that, and I certainly wouldn't advocate that in any way, shape or form. You know, a new car customer is a new car customer. I do completely understand a dealer business has got to run their business, and it's cyclical. They need new and used cars, but I think that maybe they can consider the margins they retain from a new car customer that maybe hasn't got a part exchange, so that they can counter that. But I wouldn't think that we should be getting there, certainly not on my brand. And I certainly wouldn't be encouraging that type of approach with any one of our new car customers.
Yeah. Now, we can't have a catch up and a quick interview without talking about electric cars, of course. You know, you've launched MX-30. I mean, has that had the impact that you wished for?
Well, I would have wished for a launch when showrooms were open, and that we could have done all of the press launches that we would have been planning to do, which we just couldn't do. So, you know, it's had a disappointing start to its life, as has any car that may have been planned to be launched through the pandemic period. I think since showrooms reopened and test drives could take place, I think that's what's key with that car. It is a great driving car, as is with every Mazda, but that car, particularly in the EV space, with a smaller battery, it's lighter weight, and it really does have a you know, true car feel when driving it. So we've done a number of test drive initiatives, opened up in fleet channels and for end users, and we're starting to see the level of traction now from a daily order take that will deliver on our annual volumes. So, but that's as a result of, you know, our the activities that we would have liked to have done just being quashed, and therefore it's been a quiet launch as opposed to a noisy launch.
A noisy launch from a silent car, yeah.
Yes, right.
But again, if you've got enough supply of that car, you know, you can sell whatever you can. There are no supply constraints with that car.
On that car, it equally was the semiconductor issues were there. We had enough of those coming through because I think the UK launched the car 6 months after the European launches. We had plenty of supply coming through. We would have had some registrations happen in March. They were reduced massively because people really want to test drive that car, and during March it was very difficult. And so, right now we've got plentiful stock to achieve our volume plans. And I think if I wanted to get some more MX-30s right now, I probably could get a few more, not huge amounts more, but there's opportunity, and it does a great job to balance your CO2 measurements.
Yeah, well, good position to be in, absolutely. Now, a big topic of discussion at the moment is multi-franchising. A number of brands being sold under one roof effectively. I mean, currently, do you allow your dealers to do this? And if not, are you potentially open to that in the future?
So I guess a few years ago, we came to the agreement we wouldn't recruit a new dealer whereby we were in a shared showroom for a number of reasons. Probably the biggest one for me is that I wanted to try to eke away from target related remuneration for the network, but have it more on a service and standards related measurements, and you get those things right and the sales will come. And I've always been of the mind, if you've got shared staff, shared showroom, and one brand's got target related bonuses that are huge, another one hasn't, the focus is going to be on the other brands to unlock that money, and then maybe we'll just get what we can get from the other brands. So that was kind of the decision at that time. And so whilst we didn't go out to all those dealers that were in a shared showroom, we took the decision not to recruit dealers in a shared showroom. And if there was a solution that we felt that was good, then we would agree that we'd have some form of partition between the two brands, and certainly dedicated staff, and at a sales manager level to be dedicated. I think that's where the importance piece comes. Completely understand, just from an overhead perspective, viability perspective, and we have had requests for multi-brand showrooms, which to this stage we've declined. But I do appreciate that the network's got to be viable. That's 100%. So I'm not closed to the ideas. We probably need to re-look at our strategy, and we are going through a program of the dealer of tomorrow for Mazda, where we'll take counsel from many of our dealer network partners collectively, to understand what the next 10 years might look like for the dealer, from an after sales, used car perspective, franchising, agency agreements, all of things thrown in, to understand what we collectively see as the right approach. We don't want to come out with a strategy that we haven't consulted the network on. We see a long-term relationship with the network. They're important to us, and therefore it's important they're included in those types of decisions. Whether that includes multiple brand showrooms remains to be seen for us. That would have to change some of my other strategic direction on trying to be more of a customer service driven brand rather than a sales volume and target driven brand.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned agency sales there, and that was my last question to you, really. And you're just talking about there being customer service focused. Of course, that's the big advantage with agency sales. I mean, are you of the view that this is going to happen in the motor trade in the next 10 years, and you're advising dealers of that?
Not exactly. I think that the current franchise agreement arrangement is probably not going to be the same in 10 years' time. What will it look like remains to be seen. I think the agency agreement works wonders when you're talking about online sales, being able to manage the pricing, give the customer perception that there's no negotiation and they're getting a good deal. The reality is they're probably not, because the profit is still the same amount in the car. But what is fundamental is that it's got to work for us as the manufacturer, the dealer network and customers have got to have a convenient and seamless process that they feel that they can trust the brand and the dealer that they're dealing with. If that is an agency agreement in the future, then so be it. For now, I'm not suggesting that's a route we would take. Certainly not something we're taking in the short term. And it probably something that would be a pan-European strategy that would be deployed. So we'll certainly be working with our European counterparts to understand what are the requirements of other markets, to see whether or not there is a route that we all should be taking that meets the needs of us as a brand, our dealer network, and our customers.
Yeah, fantastic. Really interesting. Thank you for that, Peter. We're going to have to leave it there today, but thanks so much for joining us.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Well, that's it for today's Car Dealer Live. See you very soon. Bye-bye.